Welcome to episode 2 of the Ether PDF read through. Technically, the first chapter is character creation, but I'm going to jump down to the setting so that we know where we are. In the book, character creation comes first for practicality's sake, so that when it's time to make a new character, you flip to the first chapter, that kind of thing, which is why this is here, this little blurb that says, if this is your first time playing, it is recommended that you read the setting chapter before creating your character. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, the setting. Before we get into the meat of the chapter, I wanted to say that you can really throw this into any sort of fantasy time period and get it to work. It's not attached to any specific geographical region or time period or culture, which is why I left. It's funny to say we're getting to get into the meat of it, but it is kind of vague as well. I left things interpretive so that you can kind of take it from there and put it into whatever kind of world you're wanting to make this. And Rachel did an amazing job of kind of implying that abstractly with the detailed, illustration by Odilon Rodin, paired with. I never mentioned in the credits video that all the other visuals besides the black and white stuff is also public domain and comes from museum archives. But that's what these wolves are. So it's like you can really genre bend is kind of what I'm trying to say here. So with that being said, we can get into it. The gods. The gods are trying to get back to the heavens. Their powers have been scattered across the world in the form of ether. Without the gods to harness and contain it, ether is a chaotic force. They cannot maintain a physical form to search for ether, so they punish wrongdoers with burdens to gather ether for them. So at one point there were several gods that held some kind of power and influence over the world, but they no longer have the power that they once had due to what I'll get into next. So now they're all kind of, they're still there, but they can't really affect the world as much as they used to be able to. And they're trying to get back to the heavens, which means get back to their thrones, get back to sort of control over the world. So they kind of became separated from their power, which is ether. It kind of, when it was separated from the gods, the ether kind of scattered around. And it is very mysterious. So it went to the furthest reaches, hidden places in the world. And the gods need the ether. So at some point they've decided to burden people who have done something wrong with this physical deformity of some kind that just makes them miserable. And the only way for them to relieve themselves of that is to get ether for the gods. So they go on these quests to these mysterious places to collect the ether. And then once they have enough, they can be free of the burden. And the gods will have that much more power back. The banished. The long defeated enemies of the gods, trapped deep in the voids. They don't remember who they were, nor do they care. Each banished was once an entity powered by a particular fear. Now they are each bound to their own sprawling void, and they can take many forms. What's left of their power is used to curiously test and toy with humans who delve too deep. So I have to give huge credit to Chris McDowell for this concept of a neutral but curious, ambivalent entity that is it kind of seems like a bad guy at first, but it's just kind of having fun in the only way it knows how. He did this with the machines in Electric Bastion Land, and it was so inspiring. I wanted to bring something like that into this world. So there's this idea of these entities that are all based on different fears, and they're the reason why the gods don't have their powers anymore. Is because there was some sort of cosmic war where the banished were banished and defeated, and we don't know anything about them because they don't know anything about them, and the gods don't have the power to communicate what they really were. So they're this mystery, which is really interesting, and also kind of, like I said earlier, lends to the ability to put this in whatever kind of setting or genre that you're wanting to do, because at the end of the day, if you can't really explain the reason for why this type of monster is in this place, right outside the city, you can just blame it on the Banished, blame it on Ether. But with the Banished, it's really important that each one is based on a fear. And so each sort of like dungeon or void, which I'll get into, is sort of built around this theme of a particular fear. So with the idea that they can take many forms, there's not a specific entity that is the Banished that you find in the void. It's more that the void itself is this personification of the Banished, and the Banished is made up of all these different things going on in the void. The void is where it is, the Banished is what it is. Which takes us to the voids. The ancient prisons of the Banished, full of lingering ether. The voids are constantly morphed and reshaped by ether, so they are impossible to map, and entrances are rare and ever-changing. Ether can mutate almost anything into monstrosities, making the voids a dangerous place to explore. So this is like another sort of like cop-out thing where you can take like a pre-written adventure that you got from the game store or online or whatever, or that you wrote yourself, and plug it in to this and just have the dungeon or the forest or the castle or whatever it is be the void essentially in this setting. So the voids, as you can see here, it can really look like anything, and the entrances can be anywhere. They're chaotic. They're not set in one place in the world. They're moving around. It's almost like another dimension, but when they appear specifically in one place, as we have like pictured here with the tree. They can look like anything. They can look like a forest, they can look like a castle, they can look like a dungeon, they can be a cave, they can be catacombs, it can be a village. The voids more often than not will be like a sort of like dungeon-esque thing, but don't be afraid to like play with villages and these like kind of more like alternate dimension type spaces. But another important thing here too is that ether is in the voids. So this is where the players find the ether, and as it says here, ether can mutate anything into monstrosities. So that being like animals, all types of creatures, even objects, structures, and even ideas, concepts can be turned into monstrosities. You can get really abstract with it. So ether is this essence that is. So if the voids are where it is and the banished is what it is, the ether is the blood, the heart of it all, the thing that's pumping it all. Then we have you. You have done something wrong. In doing so, you have upset one of the gods, and they have punished you with a burden. The burden has manifested upon your body in some form and constantly finds ways to make your life unbearable. You can only free yourself of this burden by gathering enough ether. So I basically touched on most of that. The burden aspect is really fun in character creation. You kind of roll for it, and you can get the craziest things. It's only a table of 2 columns of 20. So you roll a d20 twice to get this randomized burden. It could be like in the showcase game, Alex's character had wandering hair. So he had like a bit of hair that crawled around his body and like when he was trying to talk, sometimes it would go into his mouth. And Ryan's character had a cracking creature or a crackling creature, whatever. And he interpreted that as like this monkey that's on his back that's hitting him in the back with a slingshot, And Eldon's character got a dripping shadow. So his shadow would just kind of warble and leave a trail of shadow behind, which is just like really scary and probably unsettling for that character. So the burdens really are these things that kind of illustrate and personify the trauma, the troubled past that the characters are harboring, which brings us to the burdened. Over the centuries, those who have been burdened and brave enough to gather ether formed the Guild of the Burdened. Once a member, the god who burdened you will grant you the ability to safely carry ether and a limited number of resurrections, which worsen your burden each time. The guild's presence is worldwide, but it operates in secret. Most people are completely unaware of the guild until they themselves are burdened. And like I said earlier, this is one of those things that you can really kind of reskin however you like. The guild is very vague, but it works in this one specific way where it is worldwide and it is very secret because once you're burdened, you become kind of ostracized typically because of this like insane deformity that you have. People think you're cursed. They think you're a monster, and so naturally you kind of just stumble into the guild somehow, whether it's somebody on the street recognizing you and pulling you into an alley, or you get hammered and then wander into a church that happens to be the hold that the guild is based out of in that city. You narratively, the burden kind of just find their way to the guild, and if they don't, they succumb to their burden and I don't know, live a horrible life and die, I guess. So when you're burdened, you have the ability to carry ether, and that's sort of like this sort of boon in a way that the god gives you when it burdens you. So it's like this. A normal person, for example, can go into voids and encounter ether, but if they get too close to it, if they interact with it too much, it will begin to mutate them. So that's the boon. As a burdened, ether doesn't affect you physically, and you also have the ability to hold it, which we'll get into later with the rules. The holds. Inconspicuous buildings designated to each province throughout the realm. Holds function as sanctuaries and operational centers for the burdened. Upon joining, burdened are assigned and sent off to a hold. Each hold houses 3 to 5 burdened and is led by a hold keeper, a redeemed burden responsible for assigning quests. Holds offer the essentials such as food and shelter. It is up to the burdened to acquire their own coin and supplies while adventuring. So again, this is like another thing that has the mechanics but can be reskinned however you want, and really is designed to be thoroughly explored. So with the showcase series, the Temple of the Ancient Face, the players decided that their hold was a pie shop / cobbler shop called Cobbler and Cobblers. So that's why it was inconspicuous, and you can really do anything with the holds. You can have it be an abandoned clock tower like in the imagery here, or like the pie shop, or it could be a butcher shop, or a library. It could be anything. And this isn't something that I mentioned in the book, but I think it's implied that there are other holds in other cities and other parts of the world that players can run into. You can have one sort of adventure campaign and then start another and then have some sort of crossover. So like maybe this campaign takes its way to places that the other campaign was in, and you see this you see consequences, you see the aftermath of the other game, or maybe it's this other campaign is taking place in the future, and you get to see an earlier version of what that other hold was like. And so you can really have fun with expanding your world, hold by hold, city by city. And I say 3 to 5 burdened here as a general rule of thumb. That's how many players I like to have in my games. I've ran Ether with 1 player. I've ran it with 2. I've ran it with 7. It really just depends on who's playing to see whether or not a big group or a tiny group can be manageable. But I don't need to tell you all that. If you're watching this video, you already know that. And then you have the sort of like cop-out thing where it's like, this is where they get food and this is where they always sleep. This is the headquarters. But of course, if you want to roleplay going out hunting and buying your own food, please do that. I just haven't come across the inspiration to roleplay that which is why I just kind of gloss over food, and move on. Yeah, I like to move on to the next adventure and have like maybe like a brief moment in the town, which is the purpose of the hold here, to be that sort of transitional place. This constant, it's kind of a paradox in a way, because it's this constant, yet it's a place that serves as like a transitional element. Anyways, the end. Once you have retrieved the required amount of ether, you must visit a church of your patron god. Your burden will detach from you and manifest as a separate, hostile entity. This entity must be vanquished by your hand. Then and only then will your burden be lifted and the ether return to the gods. This is the only place where I say patron god, but that's the god who burdened you. This whole section is only relevant for the very end of your character, the very end of all the adventures that you've had with your character. So this is a page that for most of the game you're not thinking about, but once you're fully kind of leveled up and you have the maximum amount of ether in your level tracker, this is when you flip to this page and you're like, okay, I gotta go to the Church of Nature or whatever, wherever that is. You go there, and I left it pretty vague, but I feel like it's pretty intuitive. You can, if you want, you can sort of write it out as like a kind of mini void, in a way where maybe the player kind of explores the church and has to find the place where they evoke the god. Regardless, at some point in the church, the burden detaches from the player and becomes this separate entity that the player then fights. And that's the boss fight, the big bad boss fight, where the player still has a chance of dying. It's this epic moment. If they succeed in slaying their own burden, then they're free. And you can really have fun with this too, with connecting it to their past and having some kind of sequence of remembering that wrongdoing that they committed all that time ago, the reason why they have the burden, have the burden be using the player's sort of trauma against them, because this is the burden. This is the complete full manifestation of the wrongdoing they did, but also the journey to get to the place where they can actually confront it. This burden has been with them the whole time, and it has seen the growth and has seen the in some ways maybe even healing, or in some cases maybe even deeper sort of shame. Whatever the case, it is there, and it is going to fight the player, because this is the ultimate test of the god. The god wants its ether, but things aren't that simple, because the gods in this, and in the game, don't have the power that they once had. So they are truly relying on humanity. They're truly relying on the burdened, this player, to essentially vanquish this evil inside of them, to make peace with themselves. And I don't know, I think that's kind of poetic, that is what opens the gate for the ether to finally go back to the gods. And however you want to do it, that could, in your world, bring that god back to power. And then there actually is this god that can come around and be seen and be heard in this world, and that can change a lot of things, and that can change that can change everything. It can change the politics and the economical systems of your world, to have this like god that can be seen. The religious institutions may dismantle or strengthen, and then if you do that, then you have other players who are also sort of on track to vanquishing their own burdens, and then sort of one by one you have these gods sort of coming back into power. And in that case, then you could have another campaign that comes after that, where they're in this world where some gods have power because of burdened who were able to redeem themselves in the past. Which does take me back to the holds, because I did miss this. Each hold has a hold keeper that just sort of watches over the hold. They are a burden that is redeemed. So they don't have a burden anymore, but they were once burdened. So they are able to sympathize with the players. They can have any kind of personality you want. They don't have to be like super nice, but they've been there. They know how important this is for the characters. That being said, I think realistically, the gods, when your ether goes back to them, they probably don't come fully back into power, but they get a little more powerful. So this redeemed burden has given their god a little more power. That's kind of the way I would run it, because I don't necessarily want to have like true gods interacting with the world. Not yet. Maybe one day I'll get there, but it's the whole concept of the gods in this game getting their power back just serves as this reason for adventuring. It's the gas, it's the fuel that keeps the game going. So maybe one day I'll be feeling really sentimental, and I will kind of bring the gods into power in some game that I'm running, and then have that do all kinds of crazy stuff. But anyways, that is the setting in a nutshell. So I think that's the end of this episode. Yeah, huge shout out to Chris McDowell again for this. I think this structure here exists because of him. With Electric Bastion Land, there's Bastion the city, and then you have everywhere else is not wasteland, but like the further you go away from the city, the further you go back in time, and there's not necessarily like another city like it anywhere else. So it's this central point. Everything else is a mystery, and I really was inspired by that and brought that into Ether with the. Of course, in this world, you can have however many cities you want, but I love the idea of this place that you always come back to. In this case, it's the Hold with the Hold Keeper that is very wise, and because they've done everything that your character is about to do, they've seen it all. And then when they go out to the voids, they're going into uncharted territory because they can't be mapped, they can't be pinned down, which is a huge part of Electric Bastion Land. And the I think he calls it the underground. I might be wrong. Aesthetically, it's based on like the London Underground in a what's it called? It's not cyberpunk, but it's like the genre where it is kind of futuristic and techy, but like everything's kind of overgrown and there's like animals everywhere and whatever that's called. That's his underground, where the deeper you go, the more things get twisted and crazy, and the machines start toying with you more. And Chris, if you're watching this, thank you. That is an amazing, beautiful idea, and I've yet to play a game of Electric Bastion Land, so it feels wrong to take inspiration from something I haven't actually played, but I just know it's good, and that's the nature of this. Like with Ether, I think more people are going to take ideas from it than they are actually going to play it, which is totally fine by me. I want you to take this and do whatever you want with it, make it into whatever you want, make your own game out of it, just go crazy with it. I don't know, I want beautiful ideas to inspire other beautiful ideas until I don't know. All right, before I get too carried away in this passionate rabbit hole, I'll save that energy for the next video on character creation, which is going to be really fun. So let me just pull up. This is just like the thing I've been doing with this, where I think this is going to be the rhythm of these videos, where I take this and I do this, and there we go. Okay. Ether is free to download on itch. If you would like to see Ether in action, please check out the actual play playlist, where we have a beautiful showcase series called The Temple of the Ancient Face, starring Alex Wells, Eldon Warner Soriano, and Ryan Nardekia. All right. Bye.